think we have that we're gonna. Every week, yeah.
This is an update I want to do. I wonder if it's actually.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Monday, May sixth, 2024 special town council meeting and budget workshop. Roll call shows that Councilor Laraway, Councilor Powers, Councilor Demerit, Councilor Kenny, Councilor Baker are in attendance. We expect additional councilors to join us as well. And the first item on the council's agenda for today is council budget workshop regarding departmental operating capital plan review for community development. Mitch, is that you?
That is me, and being aware of the time that we have, and we have three with the library and Parks and Rec, I'm gonna go at as slow as I can, but keeping in mind the time, because it's quite a bit of information. So, community development is made up of, assessing, planning, code enforcement, and economic development. So I'm gonna go kind of in the order in which the budgets are, which would be assessing, planning, code, and economic development. They start on page 40 with the OMR stuff, and then it will follow that. So so basically, first I'm gonna go high level and then ask for questions. I think that's probably the easiest way to do this, if that works for you guys. I will start with assessing. Basically in assessing, there isn't much changing as far as what's going on. There are increases to legal fees of $25,000, and that's due to having to deal with quite a few abatements and high price stuff, and we feel like that's important to have that there. And the other one is a contract increase of $7,000 with our contract with assessor. Other than that, it's basically the same. There isn't a lot of changes doing the same things. And the major, I don't say concerns, I think the issues is just dealing with large abatements and things of that nature. And I know that there are some things intertwined with that you may have questions for. And probably what makes sense is for me to give the high level of these. I will go assessing, planning, and code, and then economic development is kind of its own thing. So the next would be planning. The planning in that budget assumes that we would sign a new year contract with IOB Community Planning, which is Isabel. And the increases in that are kind of, there really isn't an increase overall. It's about a $445 increase in the total budget. There's some shift there to deal with the contracted services of 20 hours and the comp plan. The one thing that I would suggest that you're probably going to see at the end of the year is a carry forward for money that would be involved in the comprehensive plan. Because of the timing, it's really, this budget is based on, we think these things are gonna happen, and anything that gets pushed back, you might find we need to carry that forward. Code,
Could I just?
yep.
On your planning budget. Page, the 21 over in the corner, because the ring binder goes right through whatever page we're on, but page 21 of the budget in the right hand corner. So it's planning the 2024 budget.
Wait,
See
you say
that?
page 21. Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's,
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so it shows the 2024 budget for planning was 41,865. Really 85,790. For some reason, Trio did not pick up the comp plan contract, which is 42,300 roughly. Because it was added in, and for some reason, the initial budget Trio picked up, and it didn't pick up the changes. So it shows 105.98% increase. It's really, as Mitch said, $500. It's like under 1%.
Can you remind where we took that money from to add it in?
so all we did was we took remember, we had wages and everything in there for our full-time planner.
Yeah.
We just took that money that was in there and reallocated it, so it didn't come out of that, it just got reallocated. But when we did that, Trio didn't pick it up when we ran this report of how that was reallocated. So that money it didn't go out of the planning budget, it just was reallocated to where it was put. It took it out on this, but it didn't move into the other.
Can you repeat the figure?
Yep.
So the it's a plan implementation should, for 24 budget is 42,000 298.
And that's the percentage of it.
That's contracted. So basically, yes, so the contracted services, which would include both of those, planning services and the comprehensive plan, were that 42,298.52, and that was just moved from taking out all of the wages, the benefits and all those things that we didn't have to pay when the full-time planner left. It's just a shift.
And you're still looking at page 21, or you're looking?
Yes,
elsewhere?
page 21. So instead of 41865,
Mhm.
it should be 85790.
And the line where that other 42,000 should have showed up is where?
Probably in planning services. So if you look on that same page, you'll see planning services and you'll see comp plan implementation, both of them have 0. It would be in planning services, that's where we moved it originally, but
Okay, so what we will have paid in the FY 24 budget for the comp plan services is 42,298.
I don't know that we broke that out.
This is the whole.
Yeah, that's
Shows it in the-
that, it would all come out of that one chunk for planning services and I can tell you what we've spent to date, if that's helpful too.
Sure.
If that's wrong. It's 50,584.40.
And out of what line is that?
So all plan.
That's what we've spent to date in the whole planning budget.
Which shows on which page, Mitch?
It would be on that same page at the bottom where it says
So,
36.
Instead of 36, it's really what? 50?
Gotcha, thank you.
so there's kind of on the top of page 21, there should have been or used to be a kind of a full-time salary line that's no longer
So
there.
that would have been, it's still there. So it would have been in the full-time on 20, the page before, it would say full-time salary, and you can see that we ran a certain amount, right? 26,000 was what we paid up to a certain point.
Mhm.
And then we took whatever was in that line and we reallocated that. Along with any of the health insurance or retirement, all that sort of thing. We reallocate all those things down to the contracted to make sure we get covered.
And what's the salary line showing then for FY 25?
So that would be the administrative assistant in that community development.
I think I understand what you're saying, but it's still a bit confusing why that's 41, why something is just plain missing. But I think it makes sense to me that would have added up to that.
It's a glitch in the computer program.
Trio.
So is it correct that our planning services budget for 24 was significantly higher than our planning services budget is for 25?
Yes, because we just moved all the money in there. We just reallocated all that money because we didn't know how much we were gonna spend. And actually, some of that will have to actually go to comp plan as she's doing a few things.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So that 40,000 will comprise of both of those comp plan and the planning services.
The 42,298.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and just while we're there, that planning services for the 25 budget is an estimate based on the hours she's been working pretty consistently. Feel like that's kind of the top of that to make sure that we cover that. It isn't 20 hours a week. That's what we can contract up to, but this is an estimate of that. So.
And so that final percentage at the bottom is like
0.05.
0.05%. Okay. Thank you.
So the last kind of quick overview is code enforcement. The two kind of increases in that are wages, which is both our code enforcement officer and it's about $6,000, 5,700, and then 2,000 for legal fees. We are starting to see some more complex things as we redevelop property, or this year we had a pretty significant violation that took a lot of legal stuff. So some of that stuff is got back into fines and things like that, so that revenue sometimes comes back. The one thing that I am gonna bring up about code enforcement is staffing. So and recognizing that you did not want to add any staff, that was a goal. We did not put that in the budget. But since 2019, our permits are up 71%. So we went from 273 permits in 2019 to 468 in 2023. When we look at, it's not very important. I think we had 58 permits in April alone. Okay, that's about the second highest we've had in those years. So we were hoping that this would slow down. It doesn't seem to be. I believe last year we had 20 brand new house permits, which is usually we were running around 1 or 2 a year. Great for Orono, but it's just with one code enforcement officer. That means that you now are really stretching thin. We are lucky that we have a team that works over there with life safety and community policing. So some of the complaints about garbage cans and parking on the lawn and some of those things get taken care of. At least first point of contact sometimes are other people just reaching out. But I just want you to be aware of that, because obviously that we are gonna probably be stretched to respond as quick as we normally do, as those go. And I think we do a really good job of that. But I just want people to be aware of that as we move forward.
Can you, I assume like there are probably different levels of permits, different, like some
Yep.
require inspection, some don't. Can you, not right this second, but can you provide any more sort of color to the breakdown of that, or?
So they would all require some sort of inspection. Meaning he would have to lay his eyes on the finished product to sign off on the permit. But certainly, some are easy and some are, the university pulls a permit for a big building that might be, 30 inspections over the course of 2 years. Yeah, it just depends on what it is. Everything's a little bit different, but each permit, so you've got building permits and you've got electrical permits, you've got plumbing permits, all those require some sort of inspections at certain times. If it's a, simple electrical inspection where they're just, converting maybe a generator or something like that, it's a one-time thing, sometimes it's more. So it's hard to dictate because it's a lot of times the size of the project. So.
Thank you. Yeah, just trying to quantify that. That's pretty significant jump, obviously, so.
How are the fees determined? How are the schedule fees determined? So much kind of bigger picture. When's the last time that those fees were changed?
So since I don't believe they have changed since I've been here.
Okay.
One of the pieces to that is early on, obviously, permit fees sometimes deter development. And I think that our fees are fair and they're supposed to kind of cover the cost of our code enforcement officer. Certainly, I think that it's something we can look at. But I think they're in line with surrounding communities.
It's kind of what I'm thinking is, in my mind, the bigger hindrance to development is not getting an inspector out there or, an inspector that is overworked and not doing a review in time, not necessarily. Yeah, you don't want your fees way out of market, but, if we could increase our fees to, offset the cost of additional staff,
So I will tell you that I don't think our response time in the permit side, we do a very good job of being responsive. So I don't think people are waiting, to be fair, the ones that wait are the ones that put in a permit this morning and ask for something this afternoon.
Yeah.
And we get those daily, so, and that's, but, you know, we are not, it's not like you're waiting 2 weeks for a response. And we have heard that in other communities that actually happens with many more people. So I think the challenge is really on the enforcement side.
The code enforcement side.
Is when you're looking at, you know, complaints and then looking at long-term complaints with properties that might be, you know, in violation and you're working through programs with them to fix it. That's hard to
Yeah.
keep up with, because you're always running around trying to do the permits, so.
That's not something,
Yeah, so I think that's where you end up with the bigger challenge there, so. So I guess I will leave it open to start with those three, if there are things that are questions about assessing, planning and code. And then we can dive into economic development.
You find the structure of the contract with Isabella is, meeting the needs of people that come in looking for planning services and support for the planning board?
So, yes, I have not heard anything about people concerned about that, and I will say that with our former planner, because he was actually only in the office once a week, did a lot of stuff via Zoom anyway, so I think people were used to that. There are a lot of people, especially engineers, that like that because they don't have time to travel either, so being able to do a lot of that stuff on Zoom is beneficial. And I think she does a really good job of trying to figure out how we can do that. Sometimes we will have conversations with her and meet with people in here if they want to do that, or we'll set up a Zoom here for them with her on it. So we try to accommodate if there's a challenge around that, but we've not heard any issues with that or anything.
I think the materials she puts together for the planning board and now the comprehensive planning implementation. It's implementation of some, I think it's excellent comprehensive work, so I find it to be very easy to follow and.
And she's doing that excellent job.
We need to make an acronym.
One last
for
question on the assessing legal. Do we have any recourse to, you know, recapture any of those fees?
Yeah.
So somebody,
That is one thing you can't get back is legal fees and the assessing. So that's a challenge,
So-
but they have to pay too, right? So,
yes, yeah.
so that's the hope, but it's, you know.
Due process be damned, is that Jacob, is that your position or?
No, I just, I,
I'm teasing.
it seems, yeah,
Especially
especially your taxes seem
Yeah.
cheap, so
Yeah.
why, for not us, so.
And most of the time, the legal fees don't tend to get in until you get to the state. But that's also when it gets more expensive. Okay, any other questions on those? Okay, so economic development,
What page you starting on?
so. That would be the TIF. You would be in your TIF tab. The first page in your TIF tab is the beginning of that budget. So just a general kind of overview, the increases that you see that are significant, one of them is the BAX assessment, which is the regional transit group. That's gone up almost $3,600. That's due to their work with DOT and they're getting more projects. So the way that BAX works is that everybody in the region gets a portion share based on their size. And they provide services to us both regionally, but also the Route 2 corridor project, Stillwater project. They do transportation-based planning, and so they help with those things. So that's really beneficial when you look at it regionally, because now we're looking at our transportation regionally. They also help with the bus system, the transit side of that, and looking at other multimodal things. So that's kind of as they do more projects, which is good for us, it costs us a little bit more. So that's up. The website and newsletter, $1,500 for the website. $1,000 for the newsletter, that just means we're putting more information out and we're doing a better job of communicating. The newsletter going up is because we're adding pages, numbers of pages to the Observer. And then the website is costing us a little bit more, but it's also to make sure that we have features that can make it more usable. I would say the overall. Well, there's a couple of concerns in economic development. One is when we look at, I know that we talk a lot about who gets paid out of the economic development budget. And when you think about anybody that gets paid out of that, they're doing a economic development function, okay? With the transition, we're down significant numbers in that if you look at hours wise. When we lost our full-time planner, he actually got paid 20 hours and did a lot of transit stuff and a lot of out of the TIF, which I have picked up. Your assistant town manager was 15 hours and did a lot of similar things and working through OTO fiber, the transit, lots of different things. So and those immediate needs that come up, and economic development is one of those kind of opportunistic, somebody shows up with something, you kind of have to run with it. So that is, and then your town manager had 13 hours. Those are still in the budget, but when you look at the fact that obviously you will have a town manager. I know that there's been some conversation about the assistant town manager, and we know that 20 hours is not being filled by the planner. That's 35 hours that is now stuff that needs to get done, right? And I think that that's important to recognize that now it's being done by me, but probably not as efficiently as with all the other people doing it. So as we go through this, I think it's important to understand that the hours are important to realize because that just makes us pulled and stretched. So, yes.
So when the full-time salary went down 35,000, are you saying that we have kept that in there?
So right currently, the way that the budget is, you see before you, and I'm just trying to see if I can find the sheet that I printed out that had that information on it. Oh, it's right here. There is the town manager, in the town manager's 13 hours is out of the economic development in this budget. 15 hours, but that's also for a half a year, right? That's what you would budgeted the assistant town manager. So that's 15 hours, but a half a year is.
That is
budgeted.
still in here?
That's still in, right? And then the 20 hours from the planner is not in.
Gone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the credit enhancement agreement payments? And I don't need a level D, I'm sure you have.
So
10,000 foot view.
So
100,000 foot
credit
view.
enhancement agreement payments are, when somebody's doing a project, it depends on what it is. You can create it's kind of a tax rebate, for a project in that increment of what the value of the property was to what it is after they get done. A percentage of that is given back, and it just depends on what the agreement you have with that specific, and they're all different.
To essentially offset the cost of development.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's for a period of time, and then once that period of time, it goes back on
Yeah.
So it's part of that, those sheltered funds come on. Just trying to think of this. Something else I wanted to mention about. Oh,
Yeah.
the Black Bear Express. So on page
94.
90. It's on, oh, yes, 94, I think, yeah. 94 on the page on this side, not the page under the dot. So we had budgeted $80,000 originally, and it, right at time of printing, I got the number. And it is actually 86,798, so we can read that, it's up about $7,000. So Black Bear Express is the one that runs from the downtown through the neighborhood, and that is shared with UMaine, the Avenue, I think Orchard Trails all contribute to that.
Do they all contribute equally?
No. It's UMaine and mostly UMaine in the town through the TIF, and then they pick up a portion of that.
Do we still, do you monitor ridership at all? I know they did at some point.
We do, in all honesty, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can certainly get what the riders look like. They had, COVID took a chunk out of that, but they had been coming back pretty steadily. So I can get you numbers if you'd like that.
I think it would be good for us to see it at some point, not.
Yep.
Not your highest priority.
You know that there's plenty of people who are using it, but I don't have data, obviously, but
What's that?
So there are people, I mean, I'm in grad school, but I haven't.
yeah, there's still plenty of people on it.
Okay.
I use it fairly regularly, in addition to using the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is separate from the
Right.
other bus, which is in the town manager's.
Yeah.
Right? You're-
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I believe it's in the town manager's budget. So that's the Black Bear Express. I just wanted to make sure you knew that changed.
So that's the one that says "We Are Orono" on it. Is that the right one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know, at this point, I suppose questions is, I just don't want to take too much time because we've got others coming.
Yeah, let's roll along. You got assessing too?
Assessing, I'm, anything else? Yes, we talked about assessing. If you have questions about assessing, I certainly can answer those or anything in the.
All right.
If they come back later, I'll be.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of Mitch. Yeah, which we appreciate very much.
That's fine if nobody has. We.
Yep, I think we're good.
Okay, I'll get you those numbers and.
Thanks, Mitch, very much. Now, Parks and Recreation, is that? Oh.
Should have a race for who gets
I know.
the page first. Someone got a.
First one to find it.
Number?
I believe the numbers start at 103.
107.
The pages start at 107 and then the budget information, a few pages after that,
107.
or 113, I think. Is what
Okay.
Number
found
on
it.
page 55.
107, woo-hoo. All right, yeah, no, it's like that.
Okay, take her away.
Ring binder will not go through.
We're getting there, yeah. All right. I think you had us last week when you told us the pool was gonna be done, on
Yeah.
time, for summer, but so tell us, yep.
Thank
you're
you,
all set.
everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great night. So some of the increases in this budget, I think the first significant one is the training line. With some of the shifting in public works and in facilities, Parks and Rec is looking to take on some of the inspections and some of those tasks that were typically done. And to do that, we need some proper certifications and background to do those things. So budgeting that in there for staff members.
Sorry, can you, I don't know what page where we're looking, travel and training.
Top
55.
of page 56 of the budget.
56.
Training.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. Yep.
Yep.
Sorry.
All right, thanks.
That's fine. I think the next jump you see is in the credit card fees. So in our Civic Rec system, when an individual signs up for something, it is that cost. So if it is $30 to play soccer, the thing that charges on that credit card is $30. There's no tax, there's no fee, we don't distribute that. So we absorb that fee, so the more things you add, the higher that gets. So that is an attribution of the current costs of just people signing up for activities and using that platform. Go ahead.
When's the last time we put that out to RFP?
It has been, we switched over close to 7 years ago to Civic Rec. Something that is really neat about, and I can double check the that exact date. Something that is really neat about the website we have is it integrates to the Civic Plus platform, which is our website. So Civic Rec and Civic Plus are a family.
Okay.
In that sense, the other thing, which isn't cost prohibitive, but most families in town have that account. So if we were to shift accounts, the entire town has to shift new accounts, and it's not impossible.
So if you were to go with a new merchant processing system, it would require families to, it'd be difficult for families to pay. Or you'd have to switch to a new system to be.
Yeah, potentially, there is two pieces there. There is the Civic Rec system, which the account is linked to, and then there is the merchant processing system, which is global payments. So there are two pieces to that puzzle. So global payments integrates with Civic Rec. There could be others that do. They could be worse, they could be better. So those are kind of two boxes to look at in different ways, and depending which box you pick, you then have to integrate the other one with, they all have to kind of mesh with each other. So definitely.
Might be something worth exploring if it could save us some significant money.
Absolutely.
Do you know off, what does Civic Rec, I wasn't realizing there was two elements to this, but is Civic Rec also has a charge in addition to the merchant services for anything you use a credit card for?
So the merchant service platform, which is global payments, they actually do the processing for us. So that's what is able to get into our bank account, and that's what processes the credit cards. This Civic Rec is a platform for that. So that is where that's where you log in, that's where all the code lives, and that fee is the same as it's not the same, but it is a similar fee as a website, right? A landing page, all those things are part of the Civic Rec and the global payments takes in that credit card.
There's a flat fee.
There's a flat fee for the
for
Civic Rec.
For being on Civic, that's a software thing. That's not a per charge per.
No.
So this is all credit card fees though that we're looking at here. Okay.
Correct, and through the past few years of budget, you can see that there has been a steady increase to that amount through the past few budget cycles. At least the ones I've been a part of, it has since COVID and the change in staff and Parks and Rec around that time. That this number has consistently raised during the budget
That's what I'm
process.
saying, it just
Yeah.
might be worth going out and just seeing what else is out there.
The notation here, though, it says it's directly tied to revenue, so that also means that it's not just that people stopped paying in checks and started paying on credit cards. It's actually that more people are enrolling for more programs, right?
Correct, so it is a percentage on that. We use the Civic Rec platform as a secretary, if you think
Yeah.
about, so we are not taking paper forms. On the occasion, there is someone that might come into my office and I help register, but 99% of people are going through Civic Rec. The one place we see checks still being processed is during our building rentals. You can do that both online and in person, and that still has stuck around because some of our building rentals are from organizations and groups that it's easier for them to pay in person. Is really the only place we see checks being kind of done at this point, but. Yeah. The ice rink has moved down in the allotment budgeted for it. We had made some improvements and we are continuing to make some improvements to the end of the fiscal year to the ice rink, replacing some of those rotted or damaged boards. We had a group from Maine during Maine Day come in and paint the inside, and we will be painting the outside once we get through some of those replacements. So that has returned to previous fiscal year budgets as the kind of space for maintenance has happened and has been done. So the annual budget of that one was returned, has gone down.
I was wondering about the repairs and maintenance and trail maintenance lines. Are we intending to do some work for playground maintenance? I see there's an increase listed here, but it also looks like we haven't spent much yet in this year to date. Was that budgeted for that kind of work in the previous year? We just hadn't gotten to it.
So
And the
where
repair-
you're looking at specifically the trail maintenance line of 6,000.
The one above it.
The one above it, building repairs and maintenance. So that one I try to hold on to as best I can. throughout the year because one piece of the playground is often upwards of $1,000. So there are some fiscal years where you don't see a lot spent. That means I just didn't replace something, but it is hard to use that entire line. Because if I used it and then something breaks in May, the playground is closed for a significant amount of time if that's a significant part. So I'm pretty frugal with that line as the director because I know that that's what I have to repair that. So costs can be really significant in one blow.
That makes sense.
So towards the end of the fiscal year where I haven't spent that or we haven't had a significant repair, I will buy things to help upgrade the buildings. Things like replacing table caddies and chair caddies, things that are larger maintenance items that I look to try and replace with that remaining budget. So it's not quite spent yet, but I make a little list throughout the year and look to use those funds to kind of supplement that after the playground's safe, if you will.
Sounds like you're managing that very well. On the trail maintenance one, is that sort of a similar situation or?
Trail maintenance similarly comes in waves. Also getting the Trails Committee has been meeting more frequently. In some of my weekly reports to Cornell, I have made mention of the Jeremiah Colburn area. It had suffered significant blowdown damage. The property has spots that are impassable. The land trust has helped out to clear some of those spots as we have agreements to be on property. There will be some costs towards the next fiscal year that will need to be expended to repair that property. It's not, and it's tough with some of our trails because there isn't necessarily a standard. So when the trail gets narrow or someone wants to change it or the Trails Committee gives me feedback, I can't say that's a blue trail. Blue trails are 4 feet wide with route. So it becomes difficult to manage that. So as a team, we are working on a plan to better manage those properties for the long term. So the trail maintenance line has kind of been standard for the past few years. It did disappear during a year or two during COVID because we weren't looking at doing those types of projects and looking to curb budget costs. So that is, at the moment, that's kind of a standard amount. And as we work together to have a better plan for some of those properties and better plans moving towards the future. And I say all that knowing that that's a 3, 5, 7-year process to get a better plan moved forward. But right now, you're correct. It's mostly for emergency costs. Last year, we repaired some bridges out of it. That was about $2,000 to repair some of those infrastructure things. So that one is fluctuating, but we are working on a plan to use those funds on a more consistent basis. It's just gonna take time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good,
Yep.
sure, yeah.
I just wanted to go back to page 55 for a minute, the very first line items. On some of the notations on FTEs and staff, I wasn't entirely clear. So the notation that 75% of the wages and benefits are charged to this budget for the Parks and Recs director, was that the same percentage last year in FY24, or is that a changed percentage? I'm assuming the rest is to the TIF fund?
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
But is that the same percentage that went to the TIF fund
Believe
in
so.
FY24, or is that a change?
I don't believe we changed it.
That change happened when I shifted into the director's position with the Parks and Rec manager might have been allocated a different way, and we can pull that back for you. But since the allocation of the director's role, that number has been the same attached to the director title.
Okay,
If
so
that helps. Yep.
there's no change in percentage being billed, and any change we see in the amount here is just increases in salary for folks.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So are we certain, are we certain the OEDC needs, we're gonna continue to make that annual payment? We made that commitment.
That's was going to
Yeah.
be one of my questions. Now that it's theoretically moving into the land trust.
That could be a
What
question.
page are you?
The
59.
59.
I have one on 58.
Okay, we can go back to 58. if you want, but that could be a placeholder too, and I don't know where those conversations are with the OEDC and they're
Yeah.
moving. They don't want to be in the business of owning
And
the
yeah,
center
I
forever.
get that.
Yep, and to the extent that they don't, maybe they don't, but.
No, I think that's gonna be none, yeah.
Yep.
My question was with the program events activities increase from 5 to 15. And you got down here for the ski program, 8,500. I was curious, I mean, my assumption would have been that is that because of scholarship or what?
So the increase there, I've outlined numbers in the increase, you're correct, Leo. That 10 moved from the new programs line into the programmings and events line. That was allocated in the last fiscal year. And I've moved that because the programs we added are no longer new. The skiing program is significantly subsidized. It is a flat rate for all participants, whether you have lessons or ski equipment. And that was something discussed when the plan was brought to me by the members of the public who created that program. That was a change in kind of subsidized cost, so it's a flat rate for everybody. That is something that can be changed. At the moment, looking at our current fee schedules and looking at what kind of specialty programs, if you will, fall into, that is where I garnered that number. That can be changed, and that would curb that 85 number. We pay, it changes a little bit because if your kids are doing lessons, if kids are renting equipment, then there's the fee to Herman Mountain itself and the bus fees to do that program. So there is quite a lot of pieces. We had just over 50 students attend that program. So having that much participation also increased that cost significantly. If we had a group of 20, that number would look different.
Yeah, I want to engage, the parents who were part of the, starting the group before we started thinking about changing the fee structure around or anything like that.
This is awesome that we did this, that we had this, and we had that kind of participation is awesome. But I mean, I think at least my thoughts when, this was run by a community group, they did it. And I think they probably had similar numbers. I think they had in that range, didn't they, the British year?
Yep, we met with them and we got a lot of their numbers.
That was fully paid by all those participants doing it. So it is worth having a conversation that we've taken that on. I love that the rec took it on and did it.
Yep.
I don't know that I had envisioned subsidizing $8,500 for a program. And I think that's worth a conversation because I thought we were kind of trying to replicate what was done. They did it the year before and people paid. So picking up that tab, I'm not sure was fully intentional from my perspective. I love it. And it's really awesome that we're getting kids out doing this, skiing is great.
Can I ask a connected question to Leo's? The income that comes in for any of the rec programs, obviously there's, our cost to run them, but there's also income that comes in from people's fees. Does it show, does this line show us just our cost after the income from that program comes in? Or is the income from that program showing somewhere else?
It's showing somewhere, that would
So
be
we
in
don't
our
actually know,
revenue
Leah, if
category.
this
This
is-
is all expenses.
We don't know that this is what it's costing us, Leo, because we haven't taken out how much money we're making from this program, is my point.
But to Leo's point, it would be helpful to know, I think, that how much we're subsidizing these programs.
Because I don't think this is the
So
amount.
that's not the 8,500 then. Okay, is that accurate that's probably not? Or, you obviously had to, yes. No.
Right, and that's, in terms of how the revenue is collected, it's collected into a series of codes. So the same revenue that's collected from art program is the same, that goes into the same line as ski program, and then I've budgeted this much, so I can write the amount of the check, essentially, to balance the revenue with the budgeted amount. Those are separate, they don't directly, it's not as if, okay, the total is 85, and then every time someone pays, that goes down and down and down. There are kind of different worlds. It is true that we are taking in that money, but there is a separation where you don't see that direct.
So if Leo wanted to
Immediacy.
know how much revenue we're taking in from the ski program, is that something you can easily get that information in
Yes.
Creo and get it back to?
Page 10,
Perfect,
Yeah.
that's what I want.
Yep.
Thanks.
right at the bottom of 10.
Which direction do I go in my budget binder? This way back to the beginning?
Yeah, way back under the revenues tab, you don't have to do the tab yet, so, yeah.
Thanks.
So-
Page 10 back here. Got it. Thanks.
Does that get rolled up as total rec programs or new rec programs or?
Wouldn't be ski program, would it? You don't have that level. of-
No, it's not broken down, but it's not a ski program.
I don't know, it's probably 10 items there.
Yeah.
Where are we? On page 10.
I think
Yeah.
it's down here as well.
Okay, but we.
Yeah.
But so my question still remains, is it easy for you to get that breakdown if Leo wants to know how much is coming in from ski? Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
we
Thanks.
can, although the itemized revenue is large groups, like I had mentioned, it gets kind of put into one pot. Civic Rec does give me that ability to faction it out. However you'd like, whatever program, whatever dates can all be reported, similar to Trio, we just generate it.
Does your reporting allow you to, like, at an aggregate level, be able to say, I mean, it's the write-up, the narrative is really impressive in terms of like the volunteer hours and all the things you include in it.
Mhm.
Does it, is there a metrics based on, you know, like hours of kids having fun in Orono? You know what I mean? There's a, how, what's the,
We, after most of our programs, I think all of our paid programs at this point do have a Google form attached to them that we send to families at the end of the program, so families can give feedback. So I have some anecdotal things that I'm happy to share with council.
Yeah.
But the software I use specifically does transactions. It doesn't do, I can't quantify volunteer hours from
Yeah.
Civic Rec. I can't do any of that. It's simply transactional,
Yeah.
is what that is used for.
incredibly administrative burdensome to do, you know, and so I get it. Any other questions? Your department actually goes down in spending from one year to the next at the end of the line, so good work on that. Any other questions about Parks and Rec? We had a very good session discussion that Megan led on the Union Street boat launch community meeting the other day, so that was fantastic. So thank you for your work on that too.
Thank you. Dan, if it's all right, I would like to draw attention to the new programs line.
Yep.
Although, like I had just mentioned, a lot of that moved in to the programming events line, because that's the kind of normal line item. I didn't completely omit that line, because there is always the potential of individual looking to do some sort of program that would just require some setup from staff and they can kind of go, but with the additions of last year, our staff is pretty maxed.
Right.
And there is some change that we have seen just in our ability to respond quickly to things. The public may have noticed it might take me a week or so to respond back to folks, which was not the case last year. I was pretty quick with things. So with the level of change we've had in Parks and Rec, we're still working through those new programs. They're still new. And skiing happened once. You get one shot and then you get next year to do it. So really working out kinks when projects, Parks and Rec's pretty dynamic with the amount of things you see and the directions you move in a day, with the amount of seeing something going wrong with a park and then handling a building rental. Coming to count, there's pretty dynamic in what we do in a day. So to keep that flexibility, response times and things like that have slowed a bit, not dramatically, but have slowed a bit to kind of keep up with all the new changes. So like I said, didn't want to omit that line completely, but as opportunities can arise that are unforeseen, but to add significant new programs would be a significant challenge for.
You're at a point where you need more staffing if you're gonna run more programming, right? I mean, is that kind of the?
There's a large step there, because you could give me new staff and budget for that, but we will run out of space. A lot of the space we use from the school also has their own programming, so getting additional time is challenging, and they have been wonderful in my experience, and to work with them and shift times. That has been great, but it's not my space, it's their space. So there is quite a step in terms of what we could be able to do even with some additional hours in general. So that's not the only
Right, yeah, I know.
short answer to your question, but that's not necessarily the solution to where our next level of programming could go.
Sure, yes, please.
On page 58, can you just tell me the community arts support line? I read the description, but I'm still not entirely sure. What kind of programs is that supporting?
So community arts, similarly to special projects, those have been lumped in Parks and Rec when the opportunity arises. So in the past, that went to Arts-a-Palooza, in terms of supporting some things that they needed. We used to buy a banner, we used, like, so it might have been a few years, if you look in the past, that I've expended that line completely, but it kind of leaves some opportunity. There's a small support system for those types of things, similar to special projects. That ranges anywhere from parks, my department hosting meetings regionally for people and inviting folks to Orono, to supporting staff event. It's a pretty dynamic line in terms of what comes out of those similar operations, but specifically for arts, we made its own category.
Okay.
So,
And just, I was curious, on page, sorry, on 59, on the next one, we have sort of a subtotal there, it appears to be for Parks and Rec, which is showing us, I guess that's a subtotal. What is that? Is that Parks and Rec line just a subtotal of what's been tallied up till there? The one that shows us the 0.42% negative right at the bottom of 59? Is that just a subtotal through those first couple of pages, or what is that category trying to capture for us?
Yeah, it's the total for everything.
Aggregation.
So it's the total minus the pool and minus the after-school programs. Does that explain it?
correct.
That's
Yep.
great. That's what
So-
I thought. So it's very helpful. We can see the pool separately. We can see after-school programs separately. And this is Parks and Rec minus pool, minus after-school program.
Yeah, so there's a few sublines. Parks and there's a 50 in front of the Parks and Rec, so 50 was normal operating budget, staff time, all those things we just talked about. That's the 50, pool is 53, after school is 54, if that's helpful to delineate those.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Megan?
Yeah.
Please.
So not question per se, but what I think I would like to see, contingent upon everybody else agreeing is, so we've got that $1,500 for whatever art, the community art support. Can we combine that with a portion of mini grants or something? And you and I had talked about this, Sarah, at some point, to put aside a set plot of money to, because this year we were very reactive to Arts-a-Palooza, but I do think the community events are important, so, you know, take that line item, take some community brand, whatever, and put together a set of money that we fund, whether it's Orono Days, Arts-a-Palooza, some type of festival, some type of, and maybe we don't fund it, you know, at 100%, but we do contribute some level, and that's a line item so that, you know, we don't run into the Arts-a-Palooza thing that happened last year. So that's, I would like to see that, you know, contingent upon everybody else.
Yeah. I think there was in terms of some of the learning that we had from the Stillwater Community Arts, was that, you know, the volunteer fatigue thing, and how do we have a conversation as a community about how we support and, you know, what kind of resources it take to do that. So I think that's an important conversation, and we should have a kind of change package discussion about things we may want to see in here that aren't in here.
Yeah, I don't know where this discussion lives, but I was just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
So.
And currently, the monies kind of for arts events are showing here on this line, and also showing, the rest was showing on the council line this last year.
Well, we
All the
funded-
rest showed on
yeah,
the council for the mini
contingency,
grants
so-
and the council contingency toward the Arts-a-Palooza. So it's showing right now under some council lines and a bit here under some Parks and Rec lines.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
got it.
Okay.
and then last statement, real quick, that 9,500, I know that that's in flux as the building transitions to the,
Land trust?
yes, thank you.
Yep.
But if we are truly moving forward to spending that, I would request that we know what that actually is going to, and that'll, so have that be part of the discussion.
Which page are you on?
59. So as land trust takes
yes.
over that building, I'd like to know what we're spending at $9,500. What I got.
What's the timeline for the land trust turning over that building? For those of you who are in the OEDC meetings, do we know?
I think it's happening there are discussions as we speak.
I just had a request for future. I didn't really, time flies, the contract's coming up on 6:30, so should we assume that in the fall, maybe we'll start to see sort of some analysis of that contract and,
Contract with you, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, so on 58, remaining contract rec supports, it ends on 6/30, the current contract ends 6/30/25.
That is calendar year 25 as well. So there is. Does that make sense? The contract is signed during a calendar year, not a fiscal year is all. So 20, it is still coming up. You're absolutely right,
So
but
it
it's
ends at the end of this budget that we're talking about.
correct, because we're at the end of, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
It would be good to sort of, because I don't, and just to re-understand what that was, because I don't remember. We pay the 15, I think there was some revenue share, or maybe not, I don't remember any of that, so understanding that. Again, re-understanding that would be helpful in the fallish winter timeframe, so.
All right, anything else here? I was thinking last night as I was washing dishes at the potluck, that this would be a good opportunity for you to ask for a commercial dishwasher for the Keith Anderson building if you needed one, but we'll, anyone who wants to vote against this, welcome to do the dishes at the next potluck.
That's what volunteers are for. It's their survey.
Yeah. Happy to do it. Thank you very much, Megan. That was great. I'm gonna have to abstain from this conversation because I have a We Love Orono Public Library bumper sticker on the back of my car, so you guys can do that. All right, what page are we starting on?
Let's see, 98 it appears, that's where the OMR starts. 103 is where the budget starts.
Okay, and we're talking about the library.
So the major change, or not really major, but the change you'll see is mostly personnel. Right now, we have 3 full-time people.
Laura,
It
page
takes
you want
us a
again?
while to get to pages.
Okay. 103 is the budget. Where the
Secretary in the 7 or without it?
The prime number?
Wait a minute, okay, yeah. No, it's economic development.
They're all
51.
intelligent.
Yeah, can you tell? Can
What
you tell?
page in-
Page 51 on the trio. Okay, page 103 on the punch, on the whole.
Oh, boom,
There
okay,
you go.
got it.
I'm not there yet. 51 on tree, I'm almost.
So you kind of on page 101.
You know.
Where you're talking about.
98 is, yes. Oh, yeah, at these, yes.
I'm there, thanks, Lori.
Yep.
Thanks for your patience. with that.
Sure. I don't have it all together, so I mean, as far as the binder. So personnel, we have 3 full-time, 3 part-time staff. The 3 part-timers are desk clerks. One is dedicated to youth services. She's 28 hours a week. And then we have 2 16-hour-a-week desk clerks. In order to cover that front desk, all hours that we are open without pulling from the full-time staff who are doing other things, I'm proposing adding 8 hours to one of the desk clerks to make that position 24 hours. And in doing that, it would cover all hours except for lunch breaks and vacations and sick leave and all that. And then we also have a weekly meeting that's an hour and a half, so we cover that for both of those. So that's the change I'm asking for. The other change that you'll see is there's a new line for unscheduled overtime. So there are occasions when full-time staff are asked to work longer hours as well as part-time. So if there's that need, I would like to be able to give them the option to be paid for that. I'm supposed to. In the past, they have been okay taking comp time, but they've also let me know that it would be nice to be able to ask for that and wages.
Just to back up 1 second, so personnel today is 4.5. What you're proposing is it still 4.5? Or is it just longer hours? How does that?
Oh, no, it's just that right now, the 2 desk clerks that we have for the front desk do not cover all our open hours. So I'm pulling Louise from the circulation manager position to work the desk. Or me, which doesn't happen as often anymore, or pulling someone from the services. So the goal is to just have someone at the front desk when we are open. Now, that's not to say that they're just sitting there waiting for people to walk in. They both have.
But we, instead of being currently 4.5, will be what, 5? Or
I haven't done that calculation. Well, it would be,
Be point
It's-
two,
it's-
isn't
Come on, Sarah.
8 hours is point two, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
okay, so 4.7.
Okay,
Think,
So an additional 8 hours a
So-
week.
8 hours a week, and that would also add in benefits, because right now it's 16 hours. Those positions do not receive benefits, even prorated. But at 24 hours, that position would receive benefits. So that's where the increase comes.
That's pretty important to the person you're thinking about in terms of the benefits.
She's pretty happy working 16 hours, but would, I think, be happier at 24, sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
and currently you're not covering those hours with these per diem people. Those people come in. with-
sometimes we do.
Okay.
It's kind of a juggling act when there are people out on vacation or are sick, so, there are times when I call in these per diem people. Sometimes at the last minute. So other than that, there isn't a whole lot of change. It looks like I'm going way up in dues and subscriptions, but that's because professional memberships often go up. We're not doing any other memberships other than what we've always done, but they have gone. So, any questions? I guess I don't have anything else to report. That's pretty, when I presented this to Cornell, he said, "Aren't you gonna ask for more money in your book budget?" And we're out of space. We're truly out of space. I'm almost at a point where I have to tell staff, don't buy any more books, but we're not doing that. So any questions?
Well, can you just go back for a second? I was jotting down notes about your first point and I sort of missed your second one that came after the slight increase in the hours. What was the second point you brought forward?
It was the unscheduled overtime.
Ah,
That's, yeah. And I'm not sure if we'll use all of that, but it's nice to have that in there.
Thanks.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
so I had two other things that brought up, that were brought up last week. One is the DEI budget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've been in conversations with Dustin, who's the individual who is the consultant for it is time. So far, he has done 2 core meetings and 2 large group meetings. We've decided to wait until the fall to continue them, just because we're having so many transitions in staff, needing to kind of regroup and get the new personnel on board so that we can continue the work. Up until now, all I've heard is positive feedback from staff who have participated in it. And one thing that he would like to do in the fall is also to come to council to report on what he's done, as well as trying to kind of bridge efforts between staff and council. So that would be docket for that. We haven't paid the entire contract yet. 2,900 has already been paid. We've been invoiced another 5,800. And then there was the optional council community piece at 37. That's still optional, but I think that it would be beneficial.
so
Can we-
which staff was participating in that?
Ooh, I didn't bring you the list. It was mostly senior staff, as well as at least one member from their department, with the idea that whatever was brought to those meetings would then be brought back to individual departments by 2 to 3. So I think there were about 20 people.
When you say brought back, how does that happen?
Well, the way we've been doing it is in our weekly meetings, is kind of bringing back what we've learned, what we've gathered from other departments. I'm not sure about other departments at this point. That would be something. Another piece is this last meeting that we were supposed to have this fall was to talk about how to operationally make it part of everyday work, not just a training. So that was one thing that he was going to talk about. So hopefully in the fall we'll get there. But it was up to each department head to bring it back to departments.
Thanks
Is
so
there-
much for that report, Lori. It's really good to hear that update. And I wanted to report out from the DEI committee from the meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever we met last, that we had revisited some older recommendations from DEI work in town, and including council in DEI trainings was one of the things that came up as a recommendation. So I wanted to pass along that I really sort of seconded and liked that suggestion of yours. Thanks.
Ask, what is it? Are there handouts that are?
No,
conveying
there
that?
were two large group 4-hour meetings. So, there were discussions, there were breakout groups, there were concepts that he brought to the group to discuss how do you bring this to, how do you bring the concept of diversity, equity, inclusion to your staff and make sure that it is part of your daily work. And it's not just a check the box training. So I think that is where it's headed. Some of the things we talked about were, definitions of DEI, building a framework, building a culture of DEI within your work, norms and guidelines, accountability, next steps as far as how to operationally bring this in, bring these concepts in, including hiring process. You put it in your advertising that this is important to the town of Orono.
Thanks.
Does that help?
Cornell, can you refresh our memory where the budget line item was for the DEI work? Because I'm the one who asked for this report and I don't even remember which part of the budget is that in, Cornell?
And it's to say in the.
Trying to look back in the notes from. It's in the town manager's budget, so. That is.
So. So page 10.
I was close, look at that. I was so close. Okay, and so my question was, we had budgeted 12,400 and that's coming down a lot in this year. And my original question was, is that going to work to finish the work that needs to be done? Are we still have quite a bit unexpended from this 12,400 or?
We've got 3,700, which would be, so he will complete the work next fall. So there won't be one more large group meeting. And I assume a core group meeting. So that's town manager, me, Dan Merrill. It was Rob Yerkes as well. So there were 4 or 5 of us in that core group just to kind of discuss if the training seemed to be what we were looking for. So I would assume in the fall, after he's done that last meeting and met with the council, then it would be discussed, are we ready to kind of go on our own or do we need some more work?
Okay,
with
and
him?
do you feel confident that this 2,500 in the budget for 25 is going to cover what you're believing we're going to need to do? And that was my question.
I guess I don't know. I mean, if we just do the 3,700 that is left after this next invoice is paid, that's it for him.
Right, I
So-
don't want to stop if you guys, what I've been hearing is this is a good connection and you've been building up good, strong relationships. So my concern was I don't want us to start efforts with someone and constantly stop and restart. If we have someone who's working well for staff and staff are feeling good about them, I want to be sure we're supporting whatever.
Coming on, I mean, I think it might be important to continue.
So currently this 2,500 that's in here,
3,700. Oh, is that, it's only 2,000?
it's only 2,500 that's in the budget right now.
37 left over from.
37's
I
from
see
the
what you're
current,
So there's 37 plus
24.
225 is what.
so we'll
I'm
cover his
understanding.
12,500. And then, so from January to June of 25,
Mhm.
saying
Another 20.
the town can consult with him for $2,500.
Gotcha.
I don't know if they need to have it come in and do workshops, but advice and consent. That's my thought.
Thank you. Okay,
So the other thing Leo had asked about the bond for the library, when does that have to happen? And I have more information about timeline. When I put together my OMR, the thought was that we would be needing to fundraise by May of 2025. We've met with USDA since then, and understand that we have 5 years from the time we get all our paperwork into them to complete the project.
Oh.
So we've got a longer timeline. Now, that being said, we don't want to drag it on that long because of course costs are going to go up. So Foundation has met and decided to extend the fundraising period to March of 2026. So hopefully groundbreaking after that. So the assumption is the bond would need to come either in FY 26 or 27. Or I don't know how bonds work, so can you do a little in each? So does that answer your question about
When you
timing?
say the fundraising you said would be to your
March of
candidate to
20
win?
March of 26 is what our goal to raise $2.4 million in addition to the 3.6 we're getting from USDA.
And the date you gave when the construction has to be started and done was?
So we're working on the paperwork. As soon as that is in and accepted, we have 5 years from that time.
So the 2.4 that's private in addition to the town is in addition to that too, right? Or is it?
So it's 3.6 from USDA.
Yep.
Council's pledged 2.6,
Mhm.
and then there's another 2.4 to raise.
Okay.
And we're in planning stages of getting that capital campaign going.
And you want to launch it in March of 26 or complete it by March?
Complete it. Complete it, yeah.
And the 5-year date, this starts once this paperwork is turned in, is the date by which the construction needs to be finished.
Correct.
So 8.6 is what this is?
It just keeps on going up in the longer we wait. That's building in the contingency with this timeline.
Okay.
So, and just to throw out one other, I know, one other piece that I put in my OMR if you hadn't noticed. One thing that the foundation does not currently have in its budget is where the library goes while we're under construction. So that's something that needs to be thought about. Mitch and I have been doing some brainstorming, but 2 years from now, we don't know what might be available. And so just wanted to throw it out there.
So it's not one of those, please excuse our mess while we you're gonna have to actually move
I think
operations.
the public could excuse the mess, but I do not think the staff could work 8 to 10 hours in
Yeah.
a construction site.
It's like we're getting a library in the council chambers.
So moved, right? Is there a second? Thank you very much, Lori. That's great. Is there any discussion or information requests for staff coming out of today or, ahead of the May 14th public safety focus?
So I would just mention that Zach has set up did you all get an email?
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
I got an email from Zach anyway.
Okay, so he set up the Google.
Question document?
Perfect.
Yes.
The Google thing. I don't know.
The Google thing, yes, the Google thing.
So you can fill out a form and we'll get a notice that you've got a question and we'll work.
That might be an incredibly efficient way to do it. So, good. All right.
Hey, just to put this out there, for us, as we think about the library, 2.6 million, we have a little bit of a runway now. I didn't think we'd have that. So I think it should be a good conversation piece for us.
Rather expense it than bond it? Is that what you're saying? Let's talk about it.
Maybe a
Yeah.
portion of it.
Yeah,
So
Could put some funds aside.
All right. All right, any public comment on the budget before we're off of the budget until? Hold on to it until next week if you've got it or. You're done. All right. Next item on our agenda is the Finance and Operations Committee. It's a review of the harassment ordinance draft. Jacob, with your indulgence, can I just walk people over it? Thank you. We had it on March council meeting. We had a public hearing on the harassment ordinance, claims, potential liability from claims of harassment discrimination. We took a public comment on the ordinance at that point. And follow up on some of that discussion and particularly with the email that Leo sent after we went to the insurance company, our insurance company, MMA, their risk services is the insurance pool, and had a conversation. Cornell had an email exchange And then we had at our 4/8/24 council meeting, we decided to table the ordinance and refer it to the Finance and Operations Committee, which is what we're doing right now, to allow us to finish our discussion with the insurance company. So Cornell, Sarah, myself, and Matt Terezovich, our personnel lawyer, had a conversation. This is for council members and for the public who are following along. Had a conversation with the insurance committee, and I shared, there's an updated version of the language that I emailed the council earlier today. It's in the agenda, but I'm gonna pass it around. It's
It's not the one that's attached to.
it's not the one that's attached to the agenda.
No, it's the one you have is slightly down. Yeah. the
So,
part is supposed to be gone.
It's got 1, 2, and 3 on it. It doesn't have a 4.
This is gone.
And I've got copies for the public too. Actually, let me give you this copy because it's got something on the back I want you to look at.
That's the stuff public as well. I'm gonna have
So
to-
that's not.
Okay.
That's just.
Thanks.
Yeah, at the moment.
Well, here,
I guess we'll have that later.
So I think that the big issue that we had with the insurance discussion was the idea that in our insurance, and Cornell, feel free to, or Sarah, or anyone, feel free to jump in, but our insurance company requires us to fully cooperate with us, meaning the insurance company, in the investigation, settlement of the claim, or defense against the suit. And their reading of the ordinance, and again, if I'm mischaracterizing, please extend upon or correct. Their reading of the ordinance was that if we had a vote after a settlement had been reached, it would not live up to our obligations under this section of our insurance policy. I have concerns about. I'm all about cooperating with the insurance company when it comes, if one of our plow trucks scrapes somebody's car or something like that. I understand that makes a lot of sense to me. Claims of harassment and discrimination are a higher standard for me, but at the same time, I hope to get to something that we can all agree on. I tried to listen to the concerns that people had about one, I heard something really powerful from Cornell. I'm gonna share it. You know, if staff may not come forward with a complaint if they knew that it might end up being a public vote. Heard about, our obligations around personnel matters. And then this insurance matter was, I don't love it, but I mean, I heard it, I'm listening to it. Sonia, you're with us, right? Hope she's still with us. Yeah, there she is.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
still here.
I have this by email too. So we did a lot of work with it with Matt and Cornell and Sarah and I on this language. And I'm hopeful we can talk about it briefly today. And if we feel like it's getting close to where we could vote on it, move it to our business meeting next week. If we still have more work to do, maybe we have more work to do. So.
Dan, can I say something?
Sorry.
I think people are also reading, so it's fine if you just want silence to read for a little. I just wanted to highlight that if you're someone who's trying to compare what happened compared to the older version, the changes all start partway through number 2. Where the sentence starts that says, should a complaint involving the town manager advance to the discussions of a resolution? Does everybody see that? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up from the bottom of number 2. From there on, the text is completely new. It's nothing you ever saw before. And the goal was, as for me, I can say, as Dan was saying, was to be sure that we were following what works for the insurance. I don't want us without insurance covering this stuff. So for me, that's extremely important. And the meeting included 2 lawyers from the MMA and our own town lawyer, Matt Terezovich, who all read this full language here in front of you and said that this language was fine. That this met all their criterias, that there were no problems with this language, insurance-wise or legal-wise. I would say that the goals in creating the language were, we took out the original number 3, which was the one Dan's talking about a public vote for written settlements. And instead tried to continue what had already happened in the original 1 and 2. And the 2 goals there were to be sure that the town manager is never put in a conflicted position of representing both themselves, their own and the town's interests when a complaint or claim is being made against them personally. And also to be sure that the full council continues to be kept regularly updated throughout the process, every time we're involved in any matter involving harassment and discrimination. So we just took those same two goals that were there in 1 and 2 and continued them through the process.
And I think for me, the thing that stands out the most is that, a council member would be designated to represent the town. I don't think it's a good position for a public official, a town manager, say in this example, to be signing the settlement agreement, settling a case that names them as someone who may have, names them in the act or in the action. So this would, in this case, we've met power, if the council, if there's something alleged against the manager, the council would meet and determine that one of our own would be the person that would represent the town, and end up being the signatory at the end of at the bottom of the settlement. So it wasn't a person named in it. So that's, for me, it helps with kind of the understanding to make sure the council is informed of what's going on and providing a check against how the process moves forward.
This language makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate all the work that's gone into workshopping this again and again and being responsive to concerns we've heard. In addition to legal needs that we have, and responsibilities and obligations to the town. I mean, all of that, this feels like it does what my understanding was your intention. I don't know if that sense makes sense, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you first brought this to us, this ensures, it seems, a really clear process by which council is kept informed and involved in this process and maintains real accountability and care about these things and shows how seriously we will take these things. So I don't know, this language looks really thorough, clear, and sensible to me. I don't have any problems with it.
The last sentence of, or the last 2 sentences of number 2 that Sarah was just talking about. Putting all of this into the chair or into a chair designate, to me feels like that feels to me like that should be a full council decision, because, in the event, the previous, if it's not the, an action against the town manager, that the town manager is often HR or is responsible for personnel. There's no one really here at the table that's an HR person, or, so we obviously have to get the advice of our attorney. And I just feel like that, to me, I would rather see this be the full council than a designate one person to go to end up making that decision.
So do you want a public vote on it, like we talked about in March, or?
Well, I
know
don't think
kind of a-
what you're saying would require that.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm hearing,
It's
is
an
well, you can
executive
speak for
Yeah.
yourself, I guess, but what I'm hearing is simply that that the council has to be, maybe it's an executive session, but has
Yeah.
to be giving that designee, if we do have a person, at the very least, have the council be giving direction to that person about how to act.
That's how I see it operationalized, but I guess.
So Leo, I'm gonna backtrack and say that that's actually why point 3 was created, is your exact point. So that we can't send the full council into a negotiation and arbitration. We can't all go, we're not allowed to do that. So we have to send a designee. Point 3 requires that designee and the town attorney meet with the council before any scheduled mediation or arbitration session or court appearance. Also, again, as soon as a complaint is filed in court, they have to meet with us. So at every step, they have to meet and fully update the whole council. That's exactly how we got to point 3 as your question, is how do we be sure the full council is informed and has a chance to be clear on what our priorities are? Otherwise, we can't make a decision as a council on it unless we make a public vote.
Yeah.
Which is what was not allowed by our insurance company, so we're back to there
But it-
again.
This would seem that it would require that we know any and all potential outcomes to me, like. At the end of that's good, and I appreciate you clarifying that, because that was lost on me, and I understand it better now that you say that's. This is driving my concern with that.
Yeah.
But I guess I still think at the end of so I think that makes sense. We all meet, we say, okay, here's what we think. And here's kind of what we think we're willing to go to. Somebody goes into arbitration. I still think it comes back for final in executive session.
And that's what the insurance company will tell us, they'll drop us. That's what they'll drop us on. They need it to be able to be decided at the mediation without having to come back to us.
Yeah, it's the full cooperation.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so we asked about how towns do, because we still have this, you have the internal control matter where anything over $7,500 has to come to the council for a vote. So, you know, if it exceeded that, you know, I would imagine it would have to be, the council would have to approve something in advance of, you know, up to one of those up to amounts to resolve a matter. I don't know, Cornell, if that was your. I asked about how do small towns do it with, you know, a board, not necessarily a small town, but how do communities do it where they've got have a board of select persons have to decide, and they may have to make a decision before the final settlement is negotiated, that they would authorize an expenditure up to a certain amount to settle a case, you know, a legal matter or something like that, so.
Well, actually, what they told us was that in the case of selectmen, every amount has to be approved by
Yeah.
the board, and that it does come back afterwards.
Yeah.
But they said in this case, because we're not a board of selectmen, they're not willing to insure us if we do that. So.
Yeah.
It exists for other boards, but not for us. As an option for all financial settlements, so.
So why wouldn't we have our attorney represent us at these proceedings? Why?
The attorney would be there, but the attorney can't sign. The attorney is not a legal signer for the town of Orono. So the attorney is there and they would be providing all the guidance. There's actually multiple attorneys. In this case, there's the attorney for the town, there's the attorney for the MMA, there's at least two, sometimes three, correct, Bruno? But they're not the signatory. It's either the town manager or it's a representative of the council.
Like, and so I guess. Does this give that council member the authority to go against the attorney and the insurance and all of that?
I suppose it could, I mean, if, you know,
I don't know. I mean, neither the MMA nor our attorney had any problem with it. They read it and said it was fine and they weren't concerned about the.
yeah, we can't write an ordinance.
I
for
don't know,
like the
that's all I
one-
can say, that they said they weren't concerned about it.
We can't write an ordinance for the one maverick town councilor who's not gonna, you know, decide, get up, you know, and decide they're not gonna agree to something that's been negotiated. I don't know how to.
And I guess, I mean, that's where I think that's been my sticking point with this, because it seemed to me like that was what was driving this whole thing, is that if a counselor or two had their say, maybe we don't settle like we did in previous cases. That's in my mind, what is driving this, has been driving this whole thing. Maybe I'm completely off what's driving it, and he's been driving it, so.
Yeah. No, and for me, it's been, I wanna make sure the council's informed. I don't wanna be, and I know that there can, you know, councils change and some of these things can take years to manage. But for me, I think that it's I'm not comfortable with someone who is named in a case being the person that has the final authorization on behalf of the community to sign the agreement.
So
So,
what's also distinct about this, if I understand you right, from what we had in previous language, with concerns about reversing a decision or something, is that the council is giving, in this scenario, direction to this person about how to go about signing the thing. But there's no like subsequent process by which that could be reversed, which is the which was the issue we're trying to solve with the new language. So I don't know if that answers the concern you're raising. Simply, like it removes the possibility that there's like that maverick situation, as I understand it.
I think, I mean, I like this language a lot better, but I agree with some of what Leo is saying is that, I guess I like professionals doing the professional things, and so I have a little bit of concern with a, non-HR or legal professional in the council being the final say in a legal HR matter. Now,
Well, the chair already had to engage in previous processes anyway, and I think the head of the government has to sign the thing. I think this is more making clearer the process by which the rest of the council is kept informed.
Okay.
Because the decision is still going to be informed by the legal professionals to make sure that the head of the government, which in this case, Stan currently, is given the best information, but ultimately that it's still the person who has to sign the thing.
I have one suggestion that I don't know if this would address your concern nor how the attorneys would feel about it, but if you look at the last two sentences in number 2, the sentence starting with should a complaint involving the town manager, this one, advance to discussion of a resolution or goes to mediation, arbitration, or litigation. This is where it specifies what Leo's talking about. It says the chair of the town council or a council member designated by the chair will represent the town at and during such proceedings. Leo, if your concern is that there's a rogue counselor, would you prefer that this language say something like a council member designated by a formal vote of the council, so that the entire council votes on who this person is that goes? So that's a group decision, who this person is who goes, but it's not by default any one person, so nobody's personal agenda could.
I like that.
How do folks feel about that?
That alleviates.
Would that address the
90%
concern, Leo, that
issues.
it would have to be someone that the majority of the council had complete confidence in to go and do this?
Yes and no. The no would be,
Okay.
yes, the no would be that if we had a council that was willing to go against, which.
We can do that
again, has
anytime,
been
yeah.
my concern.
And that was the point that I thought Jeff Gordon made. I mean, we could put an order on an agenda anytime we want to, pull something off of forbid the town from spending any money on a settlement. And we could pass that by a majority vote. I assume we could, that's an order. We could pass that anytime we wanted to if we've got a rogue council. So it does, I don't like the term rogue. I mean, an informed council, a council that's informed and working closely with their manager should be, I don't foresee, an instance where this is a challenge for a community. I mean, claims are filed and many of them are, many of these things many of it's a matter of communication. And I think we see a lot of times where someone's unaware of a policy or, a conversation can gets to the root of a lot of these challenges. But to the extent that there is something that rises to the level where maybe a human rights commission matter or some other kind of, legal proceeding. I think this is a means for the council and the public that they represent to make sure that there is someone not naming the matter involved in settling the matter. So.
Yeah.
So like
And
the-
I can I jump in for a second? I think it's great to be thoughtful and critical about like, well, how could this go off the rails? And I'm glad we've kind of had a rich conversation about that. But for me, I do think the council being more informed and having more awareness and ability to be part of this process is a huge improvement, as is making sure that the person who signs a thing is not a named party in the thing. That to me feels like a big step forward in having a process that doesn't risk going off the rails to begin with. And so I'm supportive of it, really appreciate the changes that have gone into making it, you know, work legally and with our insurance. And I also am fine with the change that Sarah suggested that Jacob also liked, as long as that too passes muster with our legal and insurance team. Thanks.
Cornell is the career administrator. What do you think of this?
I wasn't crazy about putting this on the books,
Why?
because I think it's confidential, and the manager will come back and meet with the council and brief them on updates on mediation, arbitration, or litigation. Two things that have just come up. One, about having a vote, about putting somebody on a to represent the town for mediation, arbitration, or litigation regarding a main human rights complaint. I'm not sure that should be public. And the number one, where it says any formal investigation, if the town manager gets a complaint and looks into the matter, is that formal or is formal outside?
Matt reviewed your question on formal and answered that in the last text from him. Did you see that?
No.
He answered that question that you put forward on his last text box, and he said that the word formal would not cover that kind of scenario. It would only have to be something where an outside investigation.
Outside, okay.
I'm pretty clear. I can pull it back up if you want, but he responded to that question of yours because you'd asked it before.
Yeah, I prefer not to have a vote in number two to name somebody. I'd prefer that, you know, we're in executive session, just, and there's this, you know, we have a case, some member of the council has to do it, and we have a discussion about who that should be. And what's discussed in the executive session would be how we proceed once we come out of executive session. We don't have to have a vote, appointing someone, you know, a formal vote for that. So I'd prefer not to have that because it gets to it creates the same challenge we're trying to avoid by not having a public vote at the end of the process. So I prefer not to have that. I'd like to get, you know, language that we can all support, but I'm also comfortable with the fact that if we can't all get there, that may not be what we can do, and that's okay too.
I'm comfortable with this as it exists, if only because, while I appreciate the concern coming from that side of the table, I think we also have voted to designate a chair to represent our interests in matters like these, and I like that this ensures that the chair is getting feedback and is keeping the rest of us informed, or the chair has designated somebody who's doing the same. And I think, you know, our point at which we hold that accountable is in our vote for who we make chair, who we trust to do things like this. But also there's plenty of time for us to be giving feedback, and I mean, we can't remove the human element from this, and I think as much as we might try to figure out every last way to ensure that this person does exactly what the rest of the council does, I mean, I just think we're not going to be able to legislate something like that.
Makes sense.
Is there a way to, full authority to represent this counselor, full authority to represent and commit the town to resolutions as prescribed by attorneys or as prescribed?
It's gonna be driven by, we have a legal obligation to, you know, in the members' duties in the event of an occurrence, wrongful act, or claim or suit, which I provided in the back of this that I handed out, is to fully cooperate with us in the investigation, settlement of the claim, or defense against the suit. The insurance company is gonna be largely driving a lot of this process. And this counselor is kind of along for the ride as our member, make sure that the manager is not put in the position of agreeing to a settlement that, in which they were a named participant or a named party. So that's, what gets negotiated is gonna come back, and the chair, the council member who's participating will have that responsibility to act on that, understanding that if they don't act with that, it, jeopardizes the insurance coverage for that claim.
I mean, to me, that brings this thing full circle as to that's exactly what happened. In any past incident, we went based on on what our attorneys told us to do. So that, again, kind of nullifies the entire need for this, in my view. But short of, I know we put a lot of work into this and we want to get something in the books. Is there an opportunity to put in there, commit the town to the resolution as per, I mean, it sounds like you're saying that is what it's gonna be, and that's. So can we add something in there that says that is what it will be, that is the person at the table, this that's gonna have signing authority, does have signing authority anyway, I think, for the most part. And back to your, is along for this language to me doesn't read like is along for the ride. But that is really what I feel like we should be.
I disagree. I disagree with that.
You don't think they're gonna be.
I think there has to be some judgment. I don't think it's a rubber stamp. I mean, I think they're part of the agreement, part of the discussions.
Just to say that I think their role, in my opinion, is to represent what the council has told them in executive session.
Yeah.
To the attorney. The attorney obviously has the legal guidance, and what they would bring is counsel in our executive discussion said this, right? That's their job, is to be that voice. I don't think that's going against the attorney. I mean, you still follow the attorney's advice, but the attorney has questions for us typically. Which are the most important non-negotiable points, those sorts of questions.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments or suggestions?
Can I just ask one clarifying thing? Is it possible for us to actually, as a council, designate the counselor to go just by our discussion in executive session? Or would that be the sort of thing that would actually require us to come out and take a vote? If we simply wrote language that said a council member designated by council in executive session will go. Does that work or not?
I think where it says the chair or council member designated by the chair. So it's the chair's vote.
So the
It's
chair
chair's
designates,
decision,
the
no.
council cannot do that ourselves in executive
we
session.
can as a group.
We can't as a group
I
designate.
think the chair in executive session can say.
Who's gonna
I'm
be?
appointing
Yeah,
counselor so-and-so to go represent the town. Yeah.
But we can't write
That'd be
language
the
there.
chair's wish, not the council.
Right,
not
but
the
we
full-
can't write language that says the council itself will designate an executive session who goes.
I don't think so.
Just want to be clear. Thanks. So
it's
we
not,
can put out
We
again.
can check with Matt on that.
I agree with you, but I just wanted to check what you thought.
it's not servant leadership. We have a discussion in executive session, and the
Yeah, I
sentiment
agree.
is, it ought to
Just wanna
be
clarify.
so-and-so who goes, that ought to be the chair's, designation should reflect what's discussed in executive session. Okay, so any other points on this?
So we're moving this forward as is.
I think we'll move it forward as is, and if someone has an amendment. Sonia, I know we don't vote on these things now, but sense of our council's ready to be done with, move this forward to a vote? Oh, sure.
Process.
Yeah.
Because you've made substantive changes to this, you have to go back to a public hearing before you can vote on it. So you have to set a public hearing and then vote again. Because you've made changes to it. I'm just letting you know that. So that you couldn't vote out at the next meeting.
Keep us honest, Mitch. We
Well,
appreciate it.
There's a process there. That's all.
Yeah, no, I understand the process. There's, people,
Now, I mean, you can check to see if that's not.
if it's material
substantive,
enough,
but you-
yeah, right, if it's substantive enough. I think it's probably substantive enough, given that we've changed.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have another public hearing. Cornell, does that work?
Okay.
And then we'll have another month.
We'll put an order on the schedule.
Put in the order on a schedule a public hearing, then we'll,
God, isn't government great? Sorry to be the.
it's all right, no, it's not. Yeah, we're gonna get it done, and whether it's, so we'll be finished with it.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated our MMA attorneys and our lawyer who met with us. I thought it was really, really helpful conversation. It was very succinct and to the point and really worked through things, and I very much appreciated it. So please
Mhm.
pass on our thanks, Cornell.
Okay. The next item in finance and operations was discussion of the Performing Arts Festival coordination proposals.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not sure if we wanted to, if you had any more you wanted to say first, or.
No, I did, this was the, yeah, we were not able to do an executive session under, it wasn't Mitch's fault this time in terms of being the process guy. As he leaves the room for those. Thank you. We weren't able to do this in executive session as we discussed last week. So we had a little more follow-up with the members. Matt asked a question, other respondents. Matt asked a question that Leo had proposed about, what do you see moving forward? We got a really good response back from the respondents, but so ultimately we have a decision to make. We have a discussion to make around the proposals, and then ultimately in order, authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement with one of the two respondents, and that'll be the decision we had today. We did have a little bit of discussion about kind of alternatives and respondents working together, and it was the feedback I got was that if you wanted to be considered for this proposal as a standalone opportunity as opposed to thinking about something different. So with that, I know, Rob, a lot of us were looking towards you as someone who's got a lot of expertise in the space, and see if you had any thoughts for us, but I'm also happy to make a motion, but.
Well, I mean, I have organized lots of events. I am a professional artist of sorts myself as a musician, but that wouldn't necessarily, anyway. I'll say looking at these, I think we have really capable, hardworking people for both of these proposals who do a great job. It does seem to me, and I'm sad that we had the people here and that increases sort of awkwardness talking about the merits of different proposals. When these are all people in town we care about and want to do well. But it did seem to me like one of our proposals from MJ Sedlock was the superior one. I think for a couple reasons. One, this person has years of professional experience doing this kind of work, had a lot of clarity and detail in her proposal, her vision to us about what this would and could be. And I think those things combined, I mean, I've also heard from a few folks who are in similar professional spaces that this person comes highly recommended, has a really impressive resume. And that's not to say anything about the other two, who Zach Fisher and Kayla Caton, who are very capable professionals who have experience as well. But it just seemed to me like there was a clear preference in my mind for which one could really, I mean, you know what I'm saying. All right, I'll leave it there.
Yep. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add on the two before we move to a motion? I will move that approval of order 2465 with the addition of, with the authorizing the executive agreement for MJ Sedlock and her proposal to run a performing arts festival. So it would be order 2465 would read, order authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement with Mary Jean Sedlock, sorry, for the 2024 Performing Arts Festival. Is there a second?
Second.
Council Powers, second. All those in favor? Sonia, are you gonna vote? I think we have to have a roll call if Sonia's, unless it's not.
Yeah, we do need to have a roll call vote and, yep. I'm
Okay,
here.
let's start. Can we start with you, Council Brexel?
Sure, in favor.
Favor? Council Lowry?
In favor.
Council Powers?
favor.
Council Demerit will vote in favor. Council Marks?
In favor.
Council Kenny?
In favor, and definitely let the other
Absolutely.
person,
Yep.
the other people know that much appreciated. and
Absolutely.
Really amazing.
Council Baker?
Yes.
In favor. It's unanimous, 7-0. Yep. And thank you very much, and thank you to the respondents, and look forward to working with anyone that wants to help grow community in Orono. Order 2466 is an order authorizing the town manager to settle uncollected real estate and personal property taxes and recommit the aforementioned balances to the tax collector and treasurer. Can I get a motion on that, and we'll do discussion?
So
Okay, second. Yep. Manager Cornell Knight, can you walk us through this one, or you're gonna bring Zach up? Zach.
Essentially, as part of the transition, previously Sophie was the tax collector and treasurer. I have taken over both of those roles. And just as a matter of that part of that transition, we need to settle the outstanding tax balances and then recommit them to me as the tax collector. That's pretty much all there is to it. I sent a little summary out of what outstanding tax balances there are currently. Questions?
So they just be recommitted from our prior tax collector to you?
Yes.
So we're not, so settling is a, yes, we're not authorizing to negotiate lower payments on past taxes. It's just a
No,
formality.
essentially, we
Okay.
confirm the balances at a
Gotcha.
certain point, and then we're gonna recommit them for collection to me. So I'll still be collecting the same amount.
Makes sense to me.
Be nice to people, Zach, all right? I mean, but thank you for doing this work. It's
Yeah, thank you,
important
Zach.
work, and
Thank you.
all right, all those in favor of? Sorry. Yeah, we have a roll call vote, Councilor Berthel. Councilor Larway, we'll come back. In favor, thank you. Councilor Larway,
in favor.
Councilor Powers,
In favor.
Councilor DeMerit's in favor. Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Zach, for stepping up and all the work you're doing. That
We know
completes,
you're nice, for the record. We know.
yeah, we absolutely, he's nice, and he's doing training.
Could be nice though.
Zach's, I stopped by his office, he's in the middle of training, and he's really stepping up, and it's wonderful, so thank you for all you're doing. Town council chair, town manager updates. Cornell, do you want to go first?
The only thing I'd say is, I met with the finalists for the Public Works candidate. I hope to have a contract for an appointment for your approval at Monday's meeting. We're gonna work on a contract the next couple of days, assume that'll go well. So hope to have that for you next Monday.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for you. Thank you very much for your weekly report. It was, it's amazing to see all the work that goes into running the town.
Thank you.
And the main day update is interesting. So I find it fascinating. For the town chair report, I did want to raise an issue. We've got our search tomorrow, and tomorrow night, well, we'll be done by now, but at 5 o'clock tomorrow, from 5 to 6:30, we'll have the community meet and greet that Sarah and Leo have been working on, or maybe a lot of Sarah and maybe a little less Leo. Yeah.
Mostly Cornell and Cornell's staff and Lissa from SGR, really. I don't get credit on the meet and greet. They've been doing all the work.
Yeah. And staff's been doing an amazing job, and the advisory committee's doing an amazing job. So we're gonna have a very full day tomorrow for our town manager finalists. We're very excited to welcome three professionals to town who will get a chance to talk with. So from 5 to 6:30, the public's invited to the community meet and greet. It'll be the first time that we publicly unveil the candidates to the community. And I wanted to raise the issue with us. I've sent everybody an invite for a special town we're gonna have a debrief tomorrow night. So we've gotten, and just to give some context, we've received hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents on the candidates in terms of the media searches, we got the references, and then all the materials. So it's been a tremendous amount of reading on top of the budget stuff that we're doing. We're gonna have a very full day tomorrow of, the staff's gonna meet with the candidates, we've got the advisory committee, and we're gonna meet with the candidates, and then we're gonna have the meet and greet. So we do have a debriefing scheduled tomorrow evening in special, so we'll have an executive committee session. And I've invited you all to a special council meeting on Thursday at 5:30 for us to, an executive session to get, our thinking was when we initially talked about it, it was if needed. I think I'm gonna have trouble digesting all that we collect for information for tomorrow night and be able to say, this is the person.
Yeah.
Because I think we've got three strong candidates and it's gonna be hard to do that. So my suggestion is that we definitely plan on the Thursday special session, executive session. I spend too much time at the legislature. So executive session and kind of set ourselves up to try and make a decision, an initial decision on a preferred candidate as part of that meeting, as opposed to trying to come to some kind of thinking tomorrow, because we're just letting the community know who the candidates are tomorrow. Is that
Agreed.
agreed? Does that sense of people?
Do we have anything Wednesday? For some reason, I had something on my calendar Wednesday too.
Probably, I don't know yet.
Please
I
no.
definitely.
I don't think so, unless it's a third Wednesday for the planning board, which it's not, so no.
No,
If you wanna meet four
No.
nights.
No, I'm good.
No.
All day Tuesday.
tree board, is
I'll
it
be
tree board
at
tomorrow?
You can meet with me there.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then to that effect, I reached out to Cornell and Pete this afternoon to suggest that, when we put because people have been asking for the names and bios, and tomorrow actually happens to be a school board meeting too, and I think it makes sense for the town to post the bios at 5 o'clock tomorrow when we have the community meet and greet. And then keep the feedback form live until Thursday afternoon, so people have something they want to share. It's tough. Our process has been designed so that, the staff gets an informed opportunity to talk to the candidates, with a lot of background and some time. Our advisory committee, which is a cross-representative of the entire community, gets time and information to talk to the candidates and give us their views, and then, of course, the council does. But to the extent that there are members of the public who are just gonna learn who the candidates are tomorrow and need like 48 hours or a little less than 48 hours to share their views with us, I think that makes sense. So anybody have any concerns about that? And Cornell, you or Pete?
Well, just that they get them in by 4 o'clock on Thursday and you're meeting at 5:30.
Keep it brief.
To digest
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't all come in at 4 o'clock on.
no,
Thursday.
You can look for Friday tonight.
We did ask Lissa about the turnaround time on public comment closing and when she would be prepared to present the results of that to council. And she told us at the time she could do it within half an hour if needed and an hour for sure. So
Wow.
I think we're okay. It apparently comes to them in a very organized form and they have a real process for how they compile. So we did inquire about that before.
And she's okay with it?
That
Perfect.
was the time she told us. She said she could definitely do it within an hour and very rarely can't compile it within half an hour for us. So
so Sarah and I will confirm with her, Sarah or I will confirm with her that she could get us feedback. If we close it at 4 o'clock on Thursday, she could get us feedback by 5:30 she's gonna be with us at our special council meeting too. Did we?
on
schedule-
Zoom.
On Zoom, yeah.
She was there when we scheduled it,
Yep.
as I recall. So she won't be in person on
Okay.
Thursday. She'll be on Zoom.
No, that's good.
So then really stupid question. What are we meeting for tomorrow night?
Debrief. If you don't think we need it.
Well, no, I'm
I think we
confused.
need it.
Yeah.
Lisa told us she wants to debrief with us at the end
Okay.
of the day, so.
Oh, wait, I thought you just moved it.
No.
No,
add-
had
we're
to.
adding.
It was already there. We added them at our last discussion. We didn't add anything. We just said for
That's fair.
sure we're meeting on Thursday. Before we weren't
But
sure.
not at 6:45.
Tuesday, we meet at 6:45. Thursday, we meet at
5:30.
5:30. There you go.
What did you just, I thought you just took one.
I have one meeting.
I
where
I
people
meant,
do-
I
I
wasn't.
took away the Wednesday imaginary meeting that Jacob had.
There was nothing taken away, Leo. I hate to tell you.
I used my executive function of the council chair, so
All right, so debrief Thursday, decide.
we have a very long day tomorrow for all of us, starting at like 8:15, 8:30 in the morning here.
30.
For those of us who are meeting, sorry.
Yeah, you're being confusing to everybody.
Sorry.
So for the council, unless you are a greeter for one of our candidates, your first event starts at 9:45 in the morning. If you're listening and you're on the advisory committee or the tour committee, you have to be here at 8:30 in the morning. And some counselors are greeting candidates as they arrive. They also need to be here no later than 8:30 if you're one of those three. Okay,
Just,
are
yeah,
we good?
I'll be here.
search your Sarah Marks emails and you'll find it. I've got them, I'm printing them out and putting them on, so.
Yeah.
And if you're a town manager candidate, I'd like to be the first one to welcome you to Orono if you've already arrived in town or somewhere nearby, and hopefully you're close. All right, anything else for us tonight? A public comment? Oh, okay, we have two. John? All right, will you introduce yourself and please address the council? And Belinda, we'll get to you.
John Rucker. Listening to the April 8th meeting the other night, and it mentioned something about Sonia not living in Orono anymore, and I'm just curious on whether she still resides in Orono or not.
Hello.
Yes,
I can
She's
answer
here.
that question. Yes, I do live in Orono. I've moved across town. I live over in the tough end on Elm Street.
Okay.
I still live on Page Place, anybody? But, okay, anything else? That's it. Belinda, anything for us?
Yeah, Belinda, I was wondering if council could provide a little bit more on the format of the meet and greet so people know what to expect if they are able to show up.
I can. This format came from SGR Consultants and it's a very flexible and informal format. So the candidates will be present and any community members who come can go up to a candidate and ask any question they want and have a conversation with them about it. They'll all be in the same room and different parts of the room. So you can come with your hardest and toughest questions for these candidates and ask them those right on the spot. Or you can just come because you'd like to meet them and see what they're chatting with other people about. That's fine, whatever degree you want. There's no need to be here for the full time. The school board meeting does, as I believe, start at 6 typically. So I believe that the meet and greet starts a full hour before the school board meeting. So if you're able to be here for half an hour or 20 minutes, that's fine. If you want to stay for the full hour and a half and ask and listen to lots of other people's questions of candidates, you can do that as well. So it really is, come as you can, come for the part that you can, come with whatever questions you have for candidates. No prescribed questions from us and no formal presentation. It's dependent on the public to bring their questions and come and ask them.
Good. Anything else? 7:02, Jacob. So with that,
Executive session though?
oh, we have an executive session.
Yeah.
And note
Sorry.
that there won't be any decision coming out of executive session, so.
Okay, well, there'll be no decision coming out of executive session and we have an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 405-6C for review of the 98 Penobscot site redevelopment RFPs. Did we get a motion? Second? Now we have to do a roll call to move into executive session. So Councilor Larway?
So, yes. In favor.
Councilor Powers, Councilor Demaris in favor, Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Kenny,
So yes.
Councilor Baker,
Yep.
and Councilor Berthasol.
In favor.
Can we take a 5-minute recess to clear